Hi, Lode.
Hi.
Hi.
Stijn is just had to go to the toilet.
Of course. Let's let him do that.
It's a very important.
Yeah. Okay. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Are you at home on Monday free on the free day?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we the shop is open now at the moment on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday I take care of my son because my wife's working. So.
Okay.
Right now, so that's good.
Okay. Let's start already. I mean, Stijn can just join in.
Yeah.
Lode and Stijn, you had actually a pretty impressive path since you started. So you started as kind of like a pop-up. You went, then you opened and changed a little bit what you're doing on the way. Can you maybe just explain how everything started and how that development took place until recently?
Yeah, I think. I mean, maybe it started 16 years ago when we met each other. Like 6 years ago, Stijn had a German girlfriend. I already had a German girlfriend as well. We thought like, hey, let's move to Berlin. After 2 years, we kind of to open a restaurant. That was the idea, of course. And then yeah, after 2 years, we found a location, and before that, we did some dinners and participated in some events. And I think we were very lucky because both were working in the Markt on the Noin, so our network of people that we got to learn was really big. If we both would have worked in just a restaurant, we wouldn't be sitting here. I don't think so. So yeah, things moved quite fast, and then when we opened the restaurant, I had an idea of what it should be, and it should be kind of like this neighborhood space. And I used to work at Bar 13, and I thought like we have to do something like this. This is nice, and but relatively fast. So in the beginning we did menu and a la carte, and then relatively fast we were like, yeah, but we're gonna skip the a la carte because this makes no sense. Oh, Stijn also there.
Hello, Stijn.
Sorry for dropping in late.
That's okay.
Continue, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, relatively.
So why did it make no sense to continue with the a la carte?
Yeah, because we would have like 6 people sitting there ordering each one dish and a glass of wine on a Saturday at 8 o'clock. We had bought all this beautiful produce, and we were like, we need to redefine the structure that we work within. So we did that, and then in the beginning we only did 4 or 6 courses. Then it moved into 5 courses, and you know, when you start to work with all this beautiful produce, then it doesn't take you long it becomes really logical to make the best out of it. And then by doing so, it became for us more and more logical to put the bar higher and higher and higher, and then all of a sudden we were aiming for a Michelin star, kind of.
Right.
And then Corona came.
Yay! So going through all of these steps of also maybe finding yourself, I feel like definitely in the last year you could really feel in your menu that you were definitely aiming for something, and that you also find yourself in that way, right? And you got really good feedback on it as well. But what is the core of Lode and Stijn? What do you really stand for in its core? Besides doing pop-ups or fine dining, what is the heart of it?
Yeah,
Lodes.
It should be.
It's funny because we do this business now for 4 years, or we have this space and restaurant, and it's been an ever since evolving concept actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's due to the Corona crisis that we have to reinvent ourselves, but lots of luck with unluck at the same time. It kind of works out pretty positive for us. And
I wanted to ask you that
Yeah.
I
Sorry?
wanted. I think this is actually a really good point when you say the core of it is Lode and Stijn, and I wanted to ask you that later in the talk, but I will just skip to that now because my idea was, how do you keep your community of guests so close? And it seems like they just go with you through all of the different concepts that you went through. You know, like it feels like you have a really close community that go with you from bistro to pop-up to a shop that you are now. How do you keep them so close and so loyal? Do you have a plan to that, or is that just intuitive?
It's definitely intuitive. There's no marketing concept behind this, which I think makes sense because people are attracted by the authenticity, probably. I think, it sounds silly to say this, I think we're relatively likable, otherwise.
I mean, it's a certain, I mean, we know that from ourselves.
That we're likable.
That we have, that we have a certain chemistry.
Yeah.
But it comes along with a lot of like passion for what we do, like craftsmanship, and we like to define good taste and produce, and it's something we stand for. And if that, I mean, that can be in a Michelin star environment, but it can also be in a neighborhood bakery and shop.
Yeah.
And we we overthink a lot. But I mean, yeah. That's it. It's our chemistry, probably, and that's what we stand for.
And I think also, to then go back to the question you asked before, I think it's we don't like bullshit. We don't like fussing around. We just like to cook really good food. We like to create a nice atmosphere. If you both give us a bottle of wine and a good meal, we're gonna be super happy, and that's what we want to transform to the people who were our guests or now buy our produce. Whether it's a good loaf of bread or amazing produce from the people that we've been working with in the last 4 or 5 years.
And I think what we can add for the situation now is that, I mean, we're all in a bit of a survival mode, you know. I mean, we started this restaurant 4 years ago with a healthy dose of naivety. So, I mean, you have your dream, your passion, and you start to grow into something. And I mean, sometimes you're very oblivious because you just want to do something, and then you don't see all the barriers that will cross your path. And then out of this like state and starting point of naivety, I think you can create something more than being prepared, you know.
Yeah.
So you're willing to go the extra mile. And now in this current state, we all have to like kind of survive and reinvent, and I think that's what we're good in.
But how did you, because you fairly quickly came up with the idea, so what you do now is a little grocery shop and boxes for the weekend with produce, and partly also some of your staple, like how do you call this, like prepared foods, so the bitterballen, for example, which I'm a very big fan of, that, since you know that. But how did you come up so quickly, and why did you decide against a fine dining takeout like a lot of other restaurants are doing now?
Yeah, maybe like the week before all restaurants were shut down was the week where it was clear that something was going to happen. And the week before that, everything felt like normal, and we had a really good week actually. And then the week before we were closed wasn't good at all. It really went like this. We had a Saturday night with, I think, 19 guests. Normally we do about 45. Mm-hmm. But still, it was in a way kind of special as well. And then, I mean, why we didn't really decide it. I think maybe it was also a little bit. We were a bit scared of what was going to happen, how that would influence us as a business, because obviously the business, there's a huge responsibility hanging on our private shoulders as well, financially, and also for the people that work for us, and also the people that we work together with, because it's all linked. So we thought we were going to close as a restaurant, and then we thought like, yeah, but then, I mean, I can bake bread. I can bake bread. Let's just bake bread. And then we decided on doing that like the weekend after, so we had some time to prepare ourselves for this, and
kind of we created it kind of organically out of like also again this intuition, but also we just wanted to do something, and then you create it organically, and then you start posting things on Instagram, but it was definitely not very organized.
But was the motive behind it what was the motive behind it? Was it to stay open and just do something? Was it also maybe to support your producers, since you're also selling their produce? I
mean, mainly the motive, I think that's the most honest answer, is how do we survive and how do we cover our costs?
Yeah.
That's what you look at first.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with all that, there's more coming along the path, like supporting your suppliers. I mean, we have 9 people that we employ that we also want to give back some work, slowly but steadily.
I think in the beginning, 1.5 weeks ago, one of the people that worked for us in the kitchen, he asked me, like, do you regret being a business owner and not an employee?
Mm-hmm.
And this question has been going through my mind quite a lot lately, because on one hand, yes, I would love to kind of be able to switch off, which I can't. Like the first 2 weeks were the most hectic, insane weeks out of my whole life. It was crazy, simply crazy. Fear, anxiety, but also like opportunity and like, let's do this. Oh, but we have to, and like workload, immense communication, totally going nuts. And so I would love to switch that off, but at the same time, we are entrepreneurs. We've decided to open our own business. So it wasn't when this happened, there wasn't something that said like, we weren't sitting down and saying like, how are we going to tackle this problem? It's like you get confronted with a form of fear, and you just go again. You have to do something. You have to move. You can't sit down. That's why if I would have been an employee, I maybe wouldn't have the opportunity to do something. But it's our own business, so we need to save the ship. We're standing at the wheel.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I think there's I mean, people react differently on this kind of stress and anxiety and fear, and I think it's immensely important that there's examples like you. That's why we're doing this whole thing, to show, okay, this is what you can do and inspire other people. But again, on the shop, it seems like in this time people are going back to comfort food. Oh. It seems like people are going back to comfort food, to like hearty dishes.
Yeah.
And it seems like you went back actually to really some Dutch staples and bread, which is familiar because Lodes' family is a family of bread makers. Is that what do you think about that? Will that is that because of the crisis, or is it just because it's the best thing to cook, to take out, or to offer right now?
I mean, first of all, it's kind of to keep what Lode and Stijn is in stand, so we don't lose our concept but the bakery was always on our mind. I mean, we're opening a second restaurant, but in addition, we wanted to also open a bakery. Well, it kind of looks like it came earlier than expected. So that's one aspect. I mean, the bitterballen are a nice Dutch feature. We'll probably never lose those. But also we have to think about this concept. I mean, we are Dutch, and we can't put that, we can't hide that from ourselves. But we would like to have some nice Dutch influences, but the concept shouldn't have the name Dutch restaurant.
Lode, did it feel like, did you also maybe, this is a little bit far-fetched now, but you going and making bread now, is that something that helped with all the stress and anxiety, like a lot of people at home now doing? Everyone is baking bread now, but is it something where you go back to maybe something that you really know really well and that calms you down also?
Like last week, last week that definitely was the case, but the week before that was definitely not the case. Like it was very stressful because normally in the restaurant we bake 18 relatively small loaves. So there would be like 10 of the loaves that we sell now, and now all of a sudden we make 120, and we do that with a very small mixer and a very crappy pizza oven that's not really a bread oven, and we do that with the fridge system that doesn't really fit so well. And then we also had to manage like the shop, and we had to manage the food that we would sell, and then we would have to manage like the business aspect of like this crisis. So it wasn't really calming me down very much. but
what gives you
something that's really nice to do?
But we took some of our staff back.
Yeah.
So we had some time this week actually to think further about our concept and the shop and how we want to continue. I mean, short term, long term is still a different thing. But it looks like for this year, definitely we won't lose the shop aspect.
Yeah.
So people can look forward to maybe even a better and nicely maintained Lode and Stijn bakery and shop. And we also worked a bit closer on the betreiben kiste concept. I mean, we won't lose it, but we will maybe bring 2 additions from this week on. And then next week we want to look into also like a delivery service / shop in collaboration with like neighborhood restaurants, bakeries, and there's a lot.
For a lot of people, this is time to reflect, and it seems like you also take a lot of time to rethink what you've did so far. What is, what do you think the concept of Lode and Stijn, how it was before, what will change in the future, or what do you have to adapt, and what will change in general in your kinds of fine dining, contemporary restaurants? How will it be different after this is going slowly back to normal?
Well, we know for sure that we can't go back to what we were. Both from a financial point of view, as well as like, I can't really imagine that the restaurants will open relatively soon. And if they would, then it's all going to be very different. And the rooms are going to be getting a very different vibe because people are sitting apart from each other and everyone's acting weird because we're all touching the same door handle of the toilet. And, you know, like maybe as staff, you'll have to carry moonshoots, who knows? So I think this aspect will stay in our society for a long time. So going back to what we were makes no sense. Like we will be a restaurant for sure, and we will not lose our core values. And we, who knows, we'll still be doing a menu, but maybe 3, 4, 5 courses, or maybe we will do a la carte. We don't know. But the aspect of the shop is something that is interesting for us, not just because it's nice, but also or nice to do, but also because we don't understand. Well, we don't see that the tourists that made up quite of our customers, let's say 50%, are going to come back this year, or maybe just a handful of them are going to come back. So we need to rethink, like, hey, who are we going to cook for? And if we see the response now at the shop that we're doing, we're seeing so many people from the neighborhood that give us kind of the non-verbal feedback of like, oh, finally we are welcome again. Not that they were never welcome, of course everyone was welcome, but we were quite an expensive restaurant, or we had become quite an expensive restaurant. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, it's nice to buy your bread again, and all this delicious stuff, and so on and so forth. So I think from that angle we have to look back to, and then how can we be a restaurant again?
So it was also a good way to actually include the neighborhood, really the neighborhood, the people that live in the area. Yeah. The shop was a way to get them also closer to you.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because you can buy also single things. You don't have to just buy one box, but you can just buy one piece of bread, one bread. Yeah.
Just have to queue for a really long time.
So maybe
Yeah,
that
because
is actually,
it's
maybe
long
that
for
is
that.
actually,
But we'll work on a more efficient way to get the waiting times down. But yeah, I mean that's part of the situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, you already said restaurant concepts will have to change. No one knows how that's going to look like. What do you think the role of a gastronome is also changing? And also, what did your relationship in that really, really stressful time change?
Ours?
Mm-hmm.
No, I
No.
don't think so.
We're like a married couple that's 80.
Okay, very good.
But what do you mean exactly with the role of the gastronome? Like
I mean, your roles also since you don't host right now, right?
or the gastronome role in general? Or...
So first of all, your roles, because they changed fairly quickly. You don't host in that way anymore, and I think also in general, like how does roles of gastronomes have to change? Because I think you already mentioned it. Also, guests will also maybe have different expectations and needs.
Yeah.
How will that change?
Well, I personally hope that the role of the gastronome doesn't really have to change because of this. That we are at some point able again to host guests in our restaurant. I mean, that's why we open them, and that's what we like to do. I mean, that's what I love about my job being a gastronome. So it's like a general thing. But for now, for this moment, I think it definitely changed something. I mean, we can also spend time at home in the evening for a change. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, we're more like looking at wholesale now, and we're doing a lot more hosting viral, like to like online systems or emailing, or not so much direct contact. So that makes a big difference.
There was actually a question from someone just writing, did you use any apps or online features to sell produce or to make everything easier right now?
Well, there's a lot on the market, especially now. They're popping up like mushrooms. But at the same time, I think you need to take some time to reconsider if that fits to us first of all, and then we will use one from next week on. Probably.
Yeah, I think Instagram for us is almost enough, and the fact that both we have a pretty wide audience, and also we only have a certain capacity that we can do anyway. So if we can sell that, then that's enough for us, because we can't even do more. So yeah.
Do you see an
crowd here? What is doing Ole?
What is Ole doing?
What's Ole doing?
Ole will be
drinking, hopefully.
Yeah, he took care of his wine cellar at home, and he will be back from next week. You can see him in the shop.
Nice. I love how you have some fans asking about him.
Yeah, he will come back to Lode and Stijn.
You say it's the role of the gastronome going to change. I hope, not about the gastronome. I hope the role of the guest is going to change a bit.
That's what I wanted to ask. Like what?
Last weekend, someone ordered the box and then canceled it last minute. This is not okay, people. It's over with this shit. No shows, last minute bullshit. It's over. And we can become a little bit more direct in answering to this. It's like, yes, of course, gastfreundlich, la la la. No. If you have to play by the rules. These are difficult times for us and the people who work for us. And you have to understand this. This is all going. It's difficult for the people we work with, like who are working on the field. Fucking hasn't rained for like 6 weeks. Like it's very difficult time. So don't fool with restaurants at the moment.
But I think it's also a time where guests actually, where we have to communicate that for sure, like you just did, but also where this becomes more clearer to guests. I think before it was difficult to make them understand why it's important to cancel 2 days ahead. And now I think people really see the effect of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it is. So I think it is also a good chance to communicate that and to make them understand what effect something that they do also has, and that it's maybe not like der Gast ist König, so like the guest, you do everything for the guest, but that it's like on an eye level relationship where, and that's what I mean, where maybe the whole system has to change a little bit, and the whole expectations also from guests have to change.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I also meant is like we as as people who run restaurants are able to voice that a bit more directly. I think being always the oh yes, of course, person, we will take care of it. That's definitely going to be part of our job, but just you can be a bit more directly saying like, hey, this is not okay what you're doing, because this is like lost income for us, and we're not trying to buy a Porsche next year. We're just trying to survive and do the thing that we like and employ people by that, and take care buying stuff from other people who run businesses on that base as well. So if you can't screw with this, it's not okay.
Is there anything besides buying produce and of course supporting in a way of like spending the money on your produce rather than going to a discounter? Is there anything that you wish for consumers how to support? Is there anything else that they can do? Or guests?
Them buying at our shop? Or
yeah, besides that, is there anything else that they could do to support?
I think, I mean, we, for instance, me and Constanza, we said like, okay, but if we're going to spend our money privately, who are we going to give it to? And then we said like, okay, these people, they run business, they are important to us. So if we're gonna buy a bottle of wine or if we're gonna drink a cup of coffee, we'll do it there.
Right.
So that I think maybe people can think about this, like, hey.
And maybe also do an extra step of researching.
Sorry?
Maybe also do an extra step of researching where do I spend my money on.
Yeah.
I mean,
think more local. I mean, people are not able, for example, to go on long holidays to a warm country, but think more local. What would you spend money on during that time that you can find here, which you never took the time for doing?
So you mentioned it already. You were supposed to actually, or you are supposed to actually open a new restaurant, which is called Remi. Can you tell us what the idea behind that was, what the concept behind that is? And what the situation is right now?
Yeah, so, well, we've been working on this restaurant. I mean, we've been building it since 1.5 years now. And it was supposed to open in the middle of April. And due to the current situation, it's still under construction, and we might be finished in the middle of May. Probably this Lego. Probably the end of May. And then we have a restaurant that is finished in the heart of Berlin. With terrace options and space for 100+ people. And that's definitely not going to happen from May on. So we're thinking about several scenarios, what to do with a finished restaurant that is actually made to do a lot of overtime. And we basically have to think like, how are we going to cover our costs there? And but we have to open because it's a finished space. Yeah, it's
right.
a challenge. Yeah.
I mean, we are lucky in the sense that we don't have people on staff, so we can still say like, okay, we're gonna start with 3 people in the kitchen and 2 in service. I'm just saying something. Although we actually planned on like almost 3 times, or maybe more, 4 times the amount of people. So yeah, it's going to be really challenging because this. First of all, this project has been taking way longer than we wanted it to take, but now we're kind of lucky in a way that we weren't opening last week, or that we didn't open in February, because then we would have a huge problem. Now we can still kind of anticipate on like, okay, what are our options and how do we deal with this? And I mean,
What was the concept there? What was the idea behind it?
Well, the concept and the idea was actually that we will I mean, it's in the Zorkamp Verlag building, which is a completely new building. It's a very open space, so we wanted to be open as a concept as well, which meant, or which will mean in the future, being open 6 days a week, from Monday to Saturday, from the morning on, so you can have a cup of coffee and read your newspaper. And then we will have lunch. We will establish a very simple, straightforward lunch concept for the people that work around, but also for the tourists that want to have a nice lunch. I mean, this is a thing that's not being seen in Berlin that much yet. It doesn't fit in the German culture that much either, but we have high hopes that this will come back or will be something established sooner or later. And then in the evening we will do an a la carte menu with the Lode and Stijn DNA, kind of, but more simpler, more open, more casual. Yeah.
How will that have to adapt now? Because I feel like, I mean, the more simpler dishes are now what guests are also maybe craving, rather. So maybe that is not such a bad. Maybe
right
that.
Now, this won't be possible having guests in the restaurant. So we might have to bring this to the people in their living room. Or eventually people will get back to work. You know, they will be in their offices around Mitte, so we might be able to bring them a nice lunch, or they can pick it up. The shop we're doing at Lode and Stijn could be, I think, a nice feature for that area in Mitte as well.
Mm-hmm.
We bake more bread. We can do a shop there as well. And I think, I mean, we're a new concept, we're a new restaurant. So I think a lot of people are interested in what we're going to do there. So if we kind of, it's new. So maybe people want to have a piece of Remi in their living room, and then we can sell that and get that to the people already.
I think of all things we should, because it will probably take another good month, another month or 2 months. I think it would be good to, I think we could hopefully calculate from the perspective that we can open as a restaurant, that we can enter guests into the space, and then just calculate on everything new on like 50% or 60%. We're probably not going to open 6 days a week, lunch and dinner, because that means you have 12 shifts to cover. That means you have to employ 2.5 people on one station, so to say. If we would reduce that to 5 days, and then ask ourselves the question, will we do lunch and dinner, or will we do just dinner? You can tweak with how many people you employ, and you can tweak with the concept of what you're going to cook and serve. And so, but I hope that we can calculate from the perspective where we can host people, where we can be open as a restaurant, and not start with like difficult takeout menus. Because in all honesty, I'm very happy that we have the ability to bake bread and to have a shop, because I think sending out food, especially on a certain level, is really difficult. I mean, if you're a pizzeria, you have no problems, I don't think, at the moment. You just need to make sure you have enough cardboard boxes and dough and just sling out your pizzas. But if you are a restaurant that has, or even really high-end restaurants, I mean, at some point, are the people still want to have a 4-course meal at home that they kind of have to prepare themselves at home? I don't know. It's a difficult one. And
then going back to your normal concept once you open is probably also difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
But for, like everyone, we also struggle with speculations. I mean, there's not really clear answers yet from the government. So, I mean, we have to speculate, so we have to be prepared for everything. Yeah. So we have to keep our options open, but not doing anything is not an option. No.
Have you felt support from other gastronomes, other projects in Berlin? I've just seen on Instagram also that you maybe exchanged some flour, which is apparently a rare good right now. I know that you did some shout out to Chunking Noodles. You did some collaboration with Ash. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I mean, the community vibe is really strong.
Yeah.
We've had, I mean, all the way, like the weekend before we were, no, the day before we were closed, as restaurants, before all the restaurants were closed, we had a gathering with a group of restaurateurs at our restaurant with the DEHOGA and the IHK to talk about what future options are. At that time, everything was unclear how it works with Kurzarbeitergeld and whatever. It was an initiative from Janine van Horvath and me. We just called each other and said, like, shall we meet up, because we need to exchange. We need to talk with each other, and that became a really big group. And there's now again an initiative taking shape of a few, or extracted from that group to see what we can do as a collective of people who run restaurants, hotels, and who stand for a quality product. And we need to make a really strong voice, and we can, in order to make sure that our business, our industry, is not going to break down as hard as people may expect. And we are in Berlin. We are in a really big city. We have so much opportunities, and we need to seize these opportunities, and it's possible.
And I think we have a really big chance in Berlin also because we are still a small community that can support each other pretty well.
Yeah.
What is your biggest learning in the last weeks? Like the biggest thing?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's that you have to keep calm, kind of, and
open another bottle of wine.
Open another bottle of wine. I mean, we worked a lot actually, and I mean, we had to work more than ever. I think the last 4 weeks, and then I think it's what you learn is not to go overboard, because there's so many ideas you can come up with now. But at some point you have to say, like, okay, let's take a step back and really rethink what we just did, so we can get it into a certain pattern, so it makes sense.
Do you have any recommendation? Like, how do you gain that strength? Like, how do you keep your head straight? Do you have any, besides drinking alcohol, which is maybe not the best thing to recommend? Besides that, do you have any? Yeah, great. This is great, guys.
I think, hi Fabian. I think also there's also a lot of ideas that Stijn said just now, but there's also a lot of stress. And I think what's important to do is to take a step back and to make sure that you have a control of the situation to the best as you can. And then as long as you stay afloat, and if you look at like on the whole year, if it goes down a little bit, that's not the end of the world. You can recover from this, but you need to stay busy. You need to keep the engine running, but on a good way. Keep it like steady. Like, don't go too crazy, or don't be lost in your stress.
Finding a good balance.
Yeah.
Last question, then I let you to your off day. Is there someone maybe in Berlin, in Germany, or also internationally that was a role model for you in the last weeks, that impressed you really much, that inspired you to do what you're doing now?
Not for me. I can say who are not my role models.
Okay, we can go from there.
I think there were many role models. Come here.
Yeah, that's difficult to answer, because what you focus on is what we, I mean, I focus a lot on ourselves. I mean, sound a bit egocentric maybe, but first have to save what's there to save. And then you read a lot of news and you try to get an understanding of what this whole virus and situation is about.
Hi, Dries.
Here's my role model. No.
Here we go.
No, yes, sir.
I can't really say.
I mean,
Do you have a role
I
model?
don't have a role model necessarily. I think one person that was on the show before as well, Bruno Verjus from Paris.
Mhm.
I think what I find inspiring is when people continue to stay in business, and not stay in business financially or money-wise, but just to keep busy. Don't let yourself, don't go thinking. And I think his like positive approach with his little videos that he does every day, although I don't understand the word of it, but it's inspiring, I think. Yeah.
And I think we should find our role models more locally, like the rest. So I think like restaurant colleagues like Bara and Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, is there, because I was so impressed by this community in Berlin. I was so impressed by them.
And you can really see like, okay, those are like, we're kind of all in the same boat, and those are the people that also want to do this effort and sling out something really nice.
And in the end, like, we've heard so many people, and actually you've also said this in the beginning, like, we've heard so many people saying like, it's so impressive to see what you're doing, but for us it was very natural to do this. And I think for many of us it's in a way natural, because otherwise you wouldn't have opened the business. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think you're definitely role models for a lot of other people.
Thank you.
And really quick for the end, maybe say real quick when you're open when the shop is open and when you can order the takeout boxes, so people know.
Okay, so please follow our Instagram if you're already doing this, but we will update our information there weekly. I mean, this is also still evolving and ever-changing thing, this shop, but for the moment we're open from Fridays until Saturdays. Sundays, sorry. Fridays until Sundays between 10 and 16 o'clock.
And when can you order the boxes?
Yeah, you can order our weekend boxes through email at reservation@lode-and-stijn.de.
Great. Well, we will do that, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for inviting us, and thanks all these 42 people that have been watching. Hello.
Yeah, and we got so many hearts. It's great. Keep up the good spirit. Okay.
Hi, Finja. Bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.